Here we are getting ready to leave Santa Monica. She gets the red carpet treatment. Colorado River as we're coming into Grand Canyon. So these pictures are all in order of our trip. First it'll be the pictures from the air as we're getting into the Grand Canyon area, and then our hike, and then the pictures on the way out in some of the surrounding areas. So I'm not going to add music. You can just see there's the Colorado River that, of course, formed the Grand Canyon, and some of the peaks, and there she is looking out the right window, looking at the beautiful scenery that we see on the way in. And the more beautiful parts of the Grand Canyon are on our trip out. And there's also a video that I had put up that is all of the air and all the pictures that we took through the cameras, the video cameras. One of the real interesting features we saw on our way in, which is just west of the Grand Canyon, is this stream or river that dumps right into the Grand Canyon. It's typical to get weather in the desert in the summer from the heat and the moist air that becomes unstable and turns into thunderstorms. You can see it as we're coming in. It's much more prominent later on in the slideshow. The scenery is just striking when you come up on the Grand Canyon. You have the desert, which is all brown, and then boom, this big canyon just fills up the whole area. It's 10 miles wide, 260 miles long, and they estimate it to be 5 to 6 million years old. Now there's some of the weather there that was showing up. There was rain off in the distance as we were coming in, and you can see in some of these other pictures how the shades and the shadows are different. There's the rain coming down. It's very striking to see. We did avoid it for the most part on the way in. We did get rained on a little bit, but we kept out of the dangerous area of weather. Tried to get a lot of pictures with the Colorado River in it because it's so prominent and so striking. So you'll see a lot of the river in these photos. You'll see off to the east is where the thunderstorm activity was, and where the heavy weather was. And here we are now. We've landed, and that's the view from the south rim. Now we're on the ground, and you can see still the weather across. And I'm just trying to get some different views that you can see from the ground. This is on the rim trail. We did take a Jeep tour that took us around the south rim, and we stopped at different places and took pictures and looked at other areas. It's very, very striking. And they called that the ugly duckling, or some duckling thing that's right there to the left. There's the Colorado River through the trees, and then I zoomed in on it to take a better look at it from one of our vantage points. The sun is very strikingly hitting the side. It's amazing how they don't have guardrails, and you can just go right down to the edge. And there's a good picture looking towards the north rim with the river. And this is another area that we visited on our little Jeep tour. We had a great guide, Sam, that took us to all these places and pointed them out. And I want to stop here for a second. This was an area in 1956 that had two commercial airliners collide in midair. They said they're still finding scraps from that flight, and they said that's how the modern FAA was born. More of some of the very striking views that were on our trip. Here we're on the edge of the canyon. This is the south rim that we're looking at and seeing. The sun is hitting it as the sun's starting to go down a little bit. And there's a daughter. These are pictures that the daughter took and I took, all mixed in. It's a very nice collection. We took a lot of photos, and I tried to whittle them down to like a 10 or 12 minute slideshow to try to give you the feel. This is a panorama that our tour guide Sam took. Shows the whole panorama of the Grand Canyon. There's a close-up of the same shot that he took. There was a couple that got married there on the edge of the Grand Canyon. How romantic. So we continued around our little Jeep tour around the rim. Weather changes there a lot. There's a nice picture of Dara down there looking over the canyon. And I tried to zoom in on some of the very striking rocks and layers and geological time. We had matching shirts. This is our Grand Canyon shirt picture coming up here. There's a river, and you can see that this is like F4 or rapids. There are 10-foot waves down there you can see. This is a good shot of the sun going down, lighting up one of the cliffs there. Here's Dara with a pair of binoculars taking a look at that river that's flowing with rapids. There they are. You can see the rapids there right in the middle of the picture. So we're looking over the Grand Canyon still, and we're heading towards, you can see how the sun is getting lower, and we're starting to head towards the sunset spot that our tour guide had picked out. So we set up there, and there's Dara standing on the edge of the canyon, literally, with the river in the background. And this is looking off to the west, where the sun is starting to set. I'm not sure the exact point there, but just to give you some different views of how it looked, very, very striking. There's a river again showing in the right. And we got to a spot, and we just sat down. I put the camera on a tree. I didn't bring a tripod with me, and you'll see some of the sunset pictures coming up here. I did snap a few before that, but it was very beautiful to be there and see the sun go down. So you can see way off in the east how the sky is much darker, and here comes the sun starting to go down. Dara's got her Arizona sweatshirt on. It got cooler really fast. The tour guide gave us some blankets, and then we're sitting there literally on the edge of the Grand Canyon. That's the drop off, and we just sat there and watched the sun go down. We did get some of the pictures out of sequence. Here's the sun going down where I'm taking some other pictures, and then you'll see some that the tour guide took of Dara and I standing on the edge overlooking this area that shows a lot. He brought us to a spot where you could see 20%, there's our matching shirts, where you could see 20% of the Grand Canyon from one vantage point. There's a nice pose of the two of us. That's my daughter and I. And that's her by herself just looking out at the epic view and standing on the point. Here's a nice panorama of the sunset with the Grand Canyon. There she is, standing on the edge. I was able to capture a few very, very beautiful sunset pictures. It's kind of hard to light up the west-looking and the east-looking areas here, but with the help of a little photo editing, you can kind of get the feel for it. It's amazing how many different looks you get from the Grand Canyon. You see the shadows are coming, and just certain areas are lit up and the rest are in shadow. It changes every day. Now we're back at the south rim at the hotel area. There's the thundercloud that's building. This is the next morning when we're going out on our hike. This is some pictures of the south rim. This is Lazar Wolf is what we named this wolf shirt that she got me that I wore on the hike. And as we were starting on the hike, I wanted to capture what the Grand Canyon looked like as you were climbing down. And we did the Bright Angel Trail that goes all the way down to an area called Indian Garden. I'll point that out here. But here are just some shots that anyone can take from the South Rim as we're starting to hike towards the start of the trail that leads down. There's that green area right in the middle there. That's Indian Springs. That's like a 5-hour hike in and a 10-hour hike out. We didn't get to that. We didn't go that early, but it was pretty striking nevertheless. And we just captured a lot of the views as we hiked. We stopped and looked and took pictures. Now you can see, looking up now, you can see how we're starting to go down into the canyon. And I'll have a graphic here shortly showing how far we went. We're just posing on certain areas that overlook, and you can tell where you were in the canyon by where some of the pinnacles were in relation to the horizon. Like one of these, we're looking down on it, and then as we go through our hike, then you're looking up at them, and you can tell how far down you hike. We only hike down, we hike down 1,000 feet. There you can see that as we're getting down, how the top of the canyon is, how tall it is. And there was weather forming, and look out to the west and the north there, you can see there was thunderstorms there. There was thunder and lightning and rain on part of our hike. It looks really far away, but it started moving in on us. And it was kind of welcome to get some of the rain and the cooler air because it was pretty warm day. There's your Indian Garden to the left, that green area there. There's a spring there. And then the weather, of course, out to the north. There's so many places to stop and gaze and look and get pictures, and we tried to whittle them down. That's a nice picture there. This might have come from Dara's camera, showing all the formations, and as we're getting closer, you'll see the Indian Garden getting bigger. I'm going to stop at this. I'm going to talk about this for a second. These drawings are 1,000 years old by Native Americans. We bumped into a park ranger that was on the trail. Dara had got to chatting with him. They were both University of Arizona graduates, so he told us, he doesn't tell many people about it, but he pointed out to us because he trusted us, and very striking. You can tell now we're starting to look up at some of these spots because we're hiking down. This gives you a picture of some of the different geology that we're hiking down, and we're going down the trail. It's the same trail that they use for the mules, that when you ride a mule down. Look at the different color of rocks. Each one is a separate period in geological times. There's that weather off to the north that was thunder and lightning coming our way, but it was still quite a ways off. You can see it was sunny and warm. It did cool off a little bit later, and we just continued to hike down. You can see this is the area towards Indian Garden. Most hikes, you hike up and then you hike down. Here you can see how far down we're getting. Most of the time you hike up and then you go down. But there's a trail just to the right of Dara that we're hiking down. But for the Grand Canyon, you go down first and then you go back up. And it's twice as long to go back up and very strenuous. That shows the edge of the canyon and then that big giant sandstone monolith that's on the other side. I thought it would make a good picture for a backdrop for us here. We stopped there, and there's an Indian Garden in the middle of the picture again. I keep bringing it up, but it's a spot that people hike to. Like I said earlier, it's 5 hours down and 10 to 12 hours back. A lot of people will be hiking it with headlamps on because it'll get dark. You got to start out really early. To hike down to the river, it's a 2-day hike to get down to the river. and it's all protected. There's no way you can get down there by road or helicopter, just on a mule. So there's showing that weather way off to the north as we continue to descend towards the Grand Canyon. Looking up, and we're getting pretty deep down there. You know, the canyon walls are getting taller. There's a good shot coming up here of Dara on the trail. These are a series of switchbacks. Like I said, the mules are on there and they go down. It's all switchbacks, fairly steep, but nothing where you can't do it on a regular hike. And this is an area, it was kind of like an amphitheater, a natural looking amphitheater that we stopped and took a picture of. And everywhere you looked, there was something to take a picture of and to document. And there's those cave drawings again on our way back. We saw them. We didn't spend a whole lot of time stopping and looking at the view. We were mostly stopping and catching our breath and then continuing on. That's a wide view of where those drawings were. 1,000-year-old drawings right there. That's very striking with the weather above us. The thunderstorms were starting to form in our area there. I think we're on our way back up now. I was taking a break, taking a breather, and she snapped a picture. And there's her Dodger hat looking out to the distance. So there's, let me stop here for a second. Those of you that have an iPhone will recognize this app. It tells you how far you hiked. So on this hike, we went 8.4 miles, 17,777 steps, and 110 floors, which meant we went 1,000 feet down, 1,100 feet down, and 1,100 feet up. So we got back to the hotel pretty much dog tired. There's our hotel. And we got back in time for the sunset though. So we watched the sun go down and then went to dinner. It was my birthday the week before, and the daughter ordered a little birthday dessert. So there it is there. So now it's the next morning. Some deer came by for the sunrise, and then we took some pictures by the rim just outside where we were, and then we were going to head to the airport and head out for the west coast. So we went from the desert all the way to the ocean here. So here's just some views, and this is views from the south rim that anyone can get and see. It never gets old to look at it. It's really, really beautiful. Picture coming up here. I told her to put her finger on top of that spot in the Grand Canyon. So we were done there. Here's the airport with the weather forming, not on our route, but towards the northwest. And so here we are in the plane, getting ready to take off. You can see the GoPro camera there in the background. So we start to take off, and we're going to fly through the corridors, the Dragon Corridor. We went through that one. And that allows you to fly over the Grand Canyon. So we're flying towards the weather, towards the northwest. Our route of flight back to Santa Monica is pretty much due west. So coming up on the end of the slideshow, I wanted to throw in these pictures that we took flying right over the canyon through the corridor. It's a sight that very few get to see, and I wanted to share them. And just the beauty of it is very, very striking. There's the weather there off to the west. So we starting to turn the plane around a little bit. Took some last minute pictures and started to head the plane towards the west, and still everywhere you look, there's something to take a picture of that's beautiful. And like my daughter says, you look down and it's just all canyon. There's no structures, there's no signs of any humans, there's no hotels, there's no trams. It's just like it was. And like I said earlier, it was formed 5 to 6 million years ago. It's quite a sight. So we're just about ready to say farewell to the Grand Canyon as we traverse over the Colorado River for one last time, grab a few shots of it, and just take in the striking beauty of it. As we turn towards the west, there is some weather forming there. I was able to navigate around it. It builds up, pretty fast as you're heading in the desert in the summertime. The heat rises and those thunderstorms just form. There's the Colorado River, one last look. So we're about to turn, big left turn here, and head towards Santa Monica. There's the edge that looks like it just literally falls off. You got the forest with the pine trees. It's 6,600 foot elevation, and you got pine trees, and then just drops off into the Grand Canyon. It's very striking to see it do that. All that greenery, and then boom, turns into brown. Now we're flying away from the weather that was in the northwest. If you leave early in the morning, usually you don't encounter a lot of thunderstorms. We left a little bit later than we wanted to, but they form pretty fast in the desert in the summertime. We got up and over them. We had to go around them first, but then we got up to altitude. I think we were at 19,000 feet coming back. Here's the last of it. We got over the top of it. And then from about the Vegas, Laughlin area in to Santa Monica, it was just hazy skies. This area you're looking at in front of us was the last of it. One last look out of the daughter's camera, and we waved goodbye. Thanks for sticking around and watching our video of these beautiful still shots of the Grand Canyon.